This is the BBC.
Thank you for downloading this programme. Now, you may remember that last year, in 2017, the Spanish government in Madrid took over control of Catalonia from the regional government, which was calling for independence. And months later, there are few signs that the political crisis is over. But the battle isn't just about politics. It's also about history and how to remember the past, especially the Civil War years. My colleague Estelle Doyle has been unearthing Catalonia's past.
Welcome to Assignment on the BBC World Service. I'm Estelle Doyle. It's just after 8 a.m. in El Soleras, a small town in Catalonia, in the north of Spain. And already a team of archaeologists and anthropologists is busy excavating a mass grave. So there are 3 women here kneeling down. 2 of them are very, very carefully scraping earth off bones. And another one with a little brush is further cleaning them. There are quite a lot of bones here. Oh yes, here you can almost identify a body starting to emerge from the earth. You can recognize the ribs, the legs, the pelvis. The bodies belong to people who disappeared during Spain's civil war in the 1930s.
We try to see, well, first of all, how they were buried, if it was carefully or not. We find injuries so that we can reconstruct what happened.
Diego Lopez is a young bearded man with a woolly hat. He's one of the anthropologists working here.
Here we have an enormous concentration of bodies, one on top of the other. You have this one here, then another one just parallel. You see the other legs? There would be a third one there. So it's like in 2 meters by less than a meter, we have 6, 7 bodies.
6 or 7 bodies?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So how many bodies are you expecting to find here altogether?
It's like 150.
Do you have any sense of how many similar mass graves there are around Catalonia?
So far, we have some little information about 500.
And how many have you been able to excavate so far?
6.
So 6, but 500 altogether, possibly.
Yeah.
That's a massive job.
That's a massive job.
Some 110,000 people disappeared during the Spanish Civil War and the subsequent dictatorship. Most are still unaccounted for. Spain has the second largest number of mass graves in the world after Cambodia. But last year, the Catalan regional government, yes, that same government that wanted independence from Spain, rolled out an unprecedented plan to register anyone whose relative had disappeared and excavate all the mass graves in Catalonia. For assignment, I'm travelling around the region to find out what's driving the Catalan plan. People here are not just divided over the issue of independence. There is another dispute going on, over history this time, between those who want to remember the past and those who prefer to leave it behind. In a small hospital consultation room in Barcelona, a petite elderly woman sits down. Dressed in a soft beige jumper, she's clutching her handbag. In it, she's got some documents and a black and white photo of a young man.
Yes,
it's her father she's looking for, Immaculada confirms in Catalan. He was a soldier fighting for the Republican side during Spain's civil war. The last time she saw him, she was almost 4 years old. She's now 84. I used to call him my chocolate soldier, she tells the doctor. I'd ask my mother, when is my chocolate soldier coming back? Next Sunday, she'd answer. The doctor takes notes and draws a family tree. Immaculada's grandson is with her. He intervenes when needed. Is your mother dead? Asked the doctor. No, she's alive. Her name is Conchita. No, the grandson jumps in. She's not. The doctor pauses, crosses out the line on the diagram between Immaculada and her mother. The doctor asks, do you understand what we're going to do now? Not really. Are you going to cut me open? The doctor reassures her. No, we're not. What does happen next is indeed far less dramatic. A nurse takes a swab, a sample of saliva from Immaculada's mouth, which the hospital will then use to map her DNA. The details will be stored in a database and hopefully at some point in the future matched to the remains from a mass grave. Immaculada is momentarily overwhelmed as she struggles to get her father's picture out of her bag.
All my life has been defined by what I was told about my father, and I had almost managed to put it away, thinking, well, this is what you've been dealt with. But now, coming here, it's all coming up again. It's like a powder keg.
And among the memories coming back, some are painful, as she tells me after the consultation.
My father had to go to the front. He had no choice. And as he left, he said, right, I'll come back on Sunday. But on Sunday, he didn't come back. And the following Sunday, neither. And I was asking my mother, what happened? Is Daddy upset? No, he's not upset, she would say. He just has a lot of work. And then eventually I realized he wouldn't come home.
And weren't you able to look for him before?
We did look for him for a long time, but we couldn't find anything. People wouldn't talk. People were afraid. You couldn't even get onto a tram and ask for 2 tickets in Catalan without being told off, speaking Christian, which for them meant in Spanish. So imagine asking about this.
Are you confident they will find the remains of your father and match them to your DNA?
It has to be. After looking for so long, he has to be found. And then I will be able to let all the tears out. I'm always keeping them inside. But when that happens, I will be able to let them all out.
On the morning we are there, 4 other families come to give their DNA at the Vall d'Hebron hospital. So far, 1,000 people have registered, and every week more are coming. Dr. Roberto Tizzano is the head of the genetic division of the hospital.
At this moment, we still hope that we can help at least some cases. The problem is that the relatives are very getting old, finishing a biological cycle, and they want to die. So that's the reason that we are putting priority to the oldest one, to take the sample from them.
In a way, it's a sort of race against time, isn't it?
Yes, but these old people coming with a lot of hope, at least something is done. They're starting with nothing, now they have something.
Younger people looking for a grand or great-grandparent are also coming to give their DNA. But the best chance of finding a match is with the DNA of a close relative, like a brother or a son. The clinic so far has found no match. But the first samples from excavated mass graves, like the one in El Soleras, have only recently been analysed, which makes Dr. Tizzano hopeful.
Let's say that perhaps 2018 is the year of the matching. 2017 was the year of doing the DNA bank, and we have a list of relatives. So now is the year of the matching.
It's worth taking a minute here to explain how 80 years could have gone by without the issue of history being addressed. During the Spanish Civil War, Republicans fought against nationalists. At the time, Catalonia declared independence. Not the first time, and as we now know, not the last time either. Catalonia was a key Republican stronghold, and the fall of Barcelona to General Francisco Franco's right-wing forces in 1939 marked the beginning of the end of Republican resistance.
The new ruler of Spain rides into the city of his conquest. Behind him is Moors, his army lines the route.
Under Franco's authoritarian rule, autonomy was revoked, Catalan nationalism repressed, and use of the Catalan language restricted. Franco remained the ruler of Spain until his death in his bed in 1975. After his death came a period of transition, during which, and this is crucial, all political sides agreed on el Pacto del Olvido, a pact of forgetting. There was no truth and reconciliation process. Instead, there was an amnesty law included in a new constitution and an agreement not to dig up the past, literally in the case of the disappeared. Spain boomed economically, consolidated itself as a democracy, and Catalonia regained some political autonomy. For many, the country's transition was a great success, but by the early 2000s, people started to question the pact of forgetting, in particular those who'd been on the losing side during the civil war and the years of dictatorship. One of those questioning was Pere Puig.
For me, the idea of having 100,000 of missing people in one country, I cannot justify that. And my point of view is that they wanted to make the pain of these people longer. You have been in the Republican side, so you are a loser, so it's a way to punish them more.
So like others, Pere Puig became involved with an association for the recovery of historical memory. Such organizations now exist all over Spain. They're run by volunteers and they try and help people find their missing relatives. But their resources are limited, as they get close to no funding from the Spanish state. A doctor in biology, Pere was able to contribute his scientific know-how and spend many hours extracting and matching DNA from bones and saliva, which he combined with a day job as a cancer researcher.
I had my job time, 8 hours, went back home, do some things with the family at around 9, 10 p.m., drive to university, work for a couple of hours, at about 12 in the night, go back home and sleep. And the weekends too. So I had some stress problems and I had to relax a little bit. I was not able to keep this rhythm of work.
Why do you feel so strongly about this, to the extent of giving your spare time, your evenings to it?
My personal history. So, for instance, my father was still is a very intelligent person, but he couldn't go to university because he was the son of a Republican.
Because of the stigma, or because he wouldn't be allowed?
The stigma, not only him. Everyone that was in the Republican side had to face the very difficult times. My grandfather was in jail, constructing roads and these kind of things for 7 or 8 years. Then I realized I am lucky to be here. If my grandfather was killed before my father was born, I wouldn't be here, so let's do something to return to my society, something important that I got.
Pere Puig is coming from a particular perspective, but the United Nations too has criticized Spain for its failure to investigate the disappearances during the civil war and subsequent dictatorship, a failure which it described as alarming. And this is where Catalonia's so-called historical memory plan comes in. Initiated last year by the then pro-independence Catalan government after it came to power, it was the first time in Spain that a local government took responsibility for funding and organizing the search for the disappeared.
Muchos de los problemas que hoy tiene España.
Many of the problems Spain has today are precisely because they didn't deal with the pain, the loss and the consequences not only of the civil war, but also of the Franco years. I'm talking about the current political crisis in Catalonia, but it goes beyond that.
Carme Garcia Suarez is the person overseeing the Catalan historical memory plan. An elegant woman dressed in black, you can't miss the yellow ribbon she's wearing, a symbol asking for the release of the Catalan separatist leaders currently held in prison.
En los Balcanes, en muchos conflictos, fue de seguida.
In the Balkans, in many conflicts, they immediately opened the mass graves and dignified victims, those who disappeared. And then the healing began. And we sincerely believe that the only way to go through the necessary mourning and then look forward is to dignify a part of our history that up to now our Spanish governments have refused to deal with.
For others in Catalonia, it is time to move on. Tabarnia is an organization which started as a satirical parody of the Catalan independence movement and is now campaigning for unity with Spain.
In its videos, to the sound of cheerful music advocating friendship, it criticizes Catalan separatists for playing up civil war resentment. Jaume Vives is their spokesperson.
People only have memory for the mass graves. But let's talk about the Second Republic before Franco. Some of my family members were repressed, taken by anarchist militias who could be very violent. Yes, we could talk about all of this and carry on with the petty fights of the Civil War. But what we want to do is create a society in which there is social peace, which our politicians don't seem to care about, especially the Catalan nationalists, who use this selective memory, this misremembering of history to mobilize people and take over power.
Back in El Soleras, at the excavation of the mass grave, the team is starting to piece together what happened here. Each mass grave has its own unique story. In other graves, there is evidence of execution, Diego Lopez, the anthropologist, tells me. But in this region, the longest and largest battle of the Spanish Civil War took place, the Battle of the Ebro. The battle was disastrous for the Second Republic, with tens of thousands killed and wounded. Close to El Soleras was a Republican hospital, which needed to dispose of its many dead bodies.
Because of the information we have about the circumstances, we think that it's Republicans doing it, but they had such a big amount and volume of bodies, and doing it at the night under bombing, they just threw them in as fast as they could.
But then, in the same mass grave, Diego and his colleagues also found Franco soldiers, believed to have been buried here after the Republicans lost the battle.
Here we have one of the graves that we believe it has mainly Frankish soldiers. They have more objects, they have boots.
There's a belt here as well.
Yeah, as you see, they are put one after the other, but they are not one on top of the other.
Yeah, they seem to be mostly lying on their back, sort of arms folded, as if someone had carefully placed them.
That's it.
And finally, in a corner of the site, 3 civilians, including the body of a man who died in his 60s. He was Josep Maria's grandfather. He hated politics and the war, but the war came to find him regardless when a bomb killed him. And today, Josep Maria is shown the exact location of his burial. When I ask Josep Maria how the news makes him feel, with tears in his eyes, he gives me only one word:
satisfaction.
And for those who wanted the past addressed, there is further satisfaction to be had.
Cap en contra y cap abstenció.
In June 2017, the Catalan government annulled 65,000 sentences that were passed under the Franco regime. People previously labelled as criminals were now innocent. It's a symbolic measure, though, with no real legal value.
Yeah, this document says the law 11th, 2017.
In a Barcelona cafe, Marc Rocas is showing me the document he received a few days ago from the regional government of Catalonia. He's also wearing the yellow ribbon.
Yeah, the name is Roque Royo Torrebadell. Roque is a Spanish name. He was always called Roc, the Catalan name. And during the Civil War, my grandfather was then captain in the Republican Army, and when Franco's troops came to Barcelona, he was sentenced for military rebellion.
And what do you know about his time in prison?
My grandfather was never telling what happened there.
He never talked about what happened?
He never talked about this period, but we know through my grandmother telling to us that the time in the prison was very hard. They had a quota of lashes.
Lashes?
Yeah. My mother, she knew about this was affecting her father.
And what was her reaction then when she heard about the law and her father's name being on that list?
She has a lot of papers of everything. All these papers that has 70 years. She has the originals of this. I think that for her it was like, okay, this is the last paper that I'm going to put into this box, and now I can close the box.
As well as the official document, there is a covering letter giving further explanation as to why the sentences were annulled.
The law
for the legal reparation
of the victims of the Frankism.
And then the very last sentence before the signature is, "We are convinced that this is an act of justice,
dignity and memory,
which honors and defines."
And is defining us as a country.
Which country are they talking about?
They are talking about Catalonia, and defining us as a country, for me, has a meaning about we are a different country, and we are doing things in a different way.
To Madrid.
To Madrid. Yeah, I think this sentence is like a cheeky wink.
A cheeky wink.
A cheeky wink is saying to us, hey, we are not as Madrid, we are doing things here differently.
But there are those who are saying the pro-independence Catalan government is using history selectively.
There are many ways of doing memory. And there is one way which is as a war between the good guys and the bad guys, the Democrats and the fascists.
Fernando Sánchez Costa is a historian and a Catalan politician, a member of the Partido Popular, Spain's current ruling party. He's definitely not in favor of Catalan independence.
There is another way of doing memory and saying it was a disaster, we killed each other.
His main concern is that the pro-independence movement is reinforcing a simplistic version of history.
Everyone has its own experience. For instance, my grandfather, when he was 5 years old, he had to leave a small village of Girona because anarchist militias could end with their lives and their properties, and he never wanted to talk about this issue. So we are in favor of memory, of public memory, but we ask to do it with the spirit of reconciliation and not with the spirit of revenge. Because if we start with the spirit of revenge, it has no end, and we would begin again a symbolic civil war.
When it comes to opening up mass graves, he thinks it should be done, but with more caution and less ambition.
Not a massive disgraving, because I don't think also it's what Spanish people is asking for. Maybe there are other people who think, okay, let's leave people rest in peace, okay? In the transition, we decided to look forward and not to be all day opening wounds. And to open graves, it is like to open wounds.
But can I ask you, as a historian, as a country, don't you need to all agree on what has happened for the unity of the country itself?
Well, I think that we need 40 years more, 100 years after the fact happens, because it's a memory which is alive. Still true.
Still too raw.
Yeah, still true. It's so, and maybe we need a bit of forgetting to gain the future.
But some Catalans argue that forgetting has now become harder. If anything, they see in today's standoff between the Spanish state and the separatist movement a reminder of the past. This week, following the arrest of several separatist leaders, demonstrators took to the street, several holding up banners saying Franco ha vuelto, Franco is back. Among those arrested is the man who started the Catalan mass grave plan and other historical memory initiatives, Raúl Romeva. Charged with treason and rebellion because of his role in the independence referendum, he could face 30 years in prison. We spoke before his arrest. I first asked him whether he had been using history for political purposes.
It is politics because public policy needs to tackle what is a public demand, and there is a public demand there. We are not doing this because we are Catalans. We are doing this because we are Democrats, and we're doing this because the political transition that was supposed to take place after the death of Franco didn't take place. The sons of the victims remained silent. It's kind of a pact of silence.
But that pact of silence you mentioned and the amnesty laws, a lot of people defend them, saying this is why we had peaceful transition to democracy. It's worked for us very well so far. Why don't we just stick with this strategy and just leave the past where it is?
Well, those who say this were the winners. Those who first won the war, and second, they were living, very well living, wealthily living, of 40 years of dictatorship. Those are the people who are saying, leave the death in peace. That's what they're saying, because they are not their deaths. What they are saying is, we won, so you have to accept that defeat. But this is not building any society at all.
That's one of the criticism that I've heard at least made of your strategy, that it's selective, that it's focusing only on the Republican side, reopening all wounds and creating new resentment.
Well, facts deny that. We never talk about the Republican victims. We talk about victims. We unbury all human remains, all. And we take the DNA of all relatives of the disappeared people.
The day is ending at El Soleras, and the two anthropologists of the team, Diego and Nuria, are about to remove a body they have just finished excavating. So Nuria and Diego have just climbed into the pit to pick up the bones. Nuria is holding a plastic bag, and now she's carefully picking up the very small bones of the foot and putting them in a plastic bag. That plastic bag has got the name of the mass grave and a number which will help identify this specific body. That day, they removed 3 bodies altogether to be sent for analysis, 3 more potential matches for someone looking for their missing relative. As I leave the site, I asked Diego whether he ever encountered any resistance locally to what they were doing.
Not here, concretely, not people that comes here. I mean, for years we have heard even the Spanish government saying that it only opens new wounds instead of closing them.
Do you have that sense of, as you unearth these bodies, of reopening wounds?
No. I think that we are one step more to close the wounds, one step closer.
The other side, of course, would say not. 8 decades after the Spanish Civil War, Spain and Catalonia have yet to find some unity on how to handle the past. Assignment was presented by me, Estelle Doyle, and produced by John Murphy.